Hey beer drinkers, Shauna here. It's been a while, but I wanted to do a little video about regional beers. In my case, that's going to be Labatt, but before I do that, I'm not going to drink this straight, so I'm going to make myself a michelada, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my michelada. For those of you that have never had one before, it's a beer, usually like a light lager, mixed with lime and tomato juice. I use Bloody Mary mix just because it's got a bunch of stuff in it already. A nice little rim of salt and you're good to go. I have this amazing Bloody Mary mix from Gordy's Pickle jar in DC. My friend sent this to me. And you mix that with a nice blue light and you have an amazing michelada. There's also pickled okra in here, also from Gordy's Pickle jar that my friend sent. So I'm probably the only person in Buffalo using blue light to make a michelada with pickled okra, but you know, it's damn good, so you're missing out if you're not having one. Yeah, that's good. One of the first things I noticed when I moved to Buffalo was how Labatt was everywhere. Everyone was drinking blue light, and I was shocked because I consider myself to be somewhat knowledgeable about beer, and I had literally never heard of Labatt before. And I was like, how can this like major brewery exist that I've never even heard of? And so I started thinking a little bit more about regional beer culture. And in San Diego, you know, the regional beer culture is the fact that we have so many breweries, but it's not necessarily tied to one specific brand. Whereas when I moved out here, it was Labatt. There was a culture and an identity around it that I wasn't used to seeing. And you know, even though it is like a macro brew, the fact that it is so ingrained in the culture here, I feel like does make it a little bit special. There's this mentality out there, especially in the craft beer world, that all light pilsners or macro brews are evil. And I don't necessarily feel that way. I think that they do have their place, but you also need to support your local craft breweries too. If that's what you like to drink, then go for it. A little bit of history of Labatt. Labatt is actually a Canadian beer. Just like 90% of things in Buffalo, it's Canadian. Labatt actually started in 1847 in Ontario, Canada. So the brand has been around a long time. Somewhere in the 1900s, they started kind of importing it to the US here. There's actually a separate company. Labatt USA is a completely separate arm of Labatt, and it's basically just an import business. They're actually planning on opening a brewery actually here in Buffalo at the end of the year. So Labatt will actually start to be produced here in the States. The Buffalonians love their Labatt so much, there's actually an old grain silo that has been painted to look like a Labatt six-pack. You should Google it and check it out. It's gaudy as hell, but there's something about it. It's endearing, I think. I mentioned that Labatt USA is a separate company. What happened is when InBev merged with Anheuser-Busch, InBev owned Labatt, and because the market share in Western New York was pretty much dominated between Budweiser and Labatt, that's what everybody drank here, they thought there wasn't going to be enough competition if the same company owned both brands. So the Department of Justice actually required the Labatt USA to be sold to a separate company to prevent a monopoly in the area for beer. So the USA import branch was sold to North American Breweries, which is kind of like a conglomerate that is headed in Rochester, which is just east of here, which also owns Genesee and Pyramid and Magic Hat. But that company is actually owned by a Costa Rican food company. And that's one of the things that's kind of a bummer about large corporations, is you really have no idea who actually owns what and where that money is going. It's really easy if you go to your local craft brewery, you know it's made right there. So you're just a lot closer to the money stays in the community. I mean, taste-wise, it's your, your generic Pilsner, but it's not bad. I mean, I doubt you can really find Labatt anywhere that's not Western New York, but if you can, try it out. It's good. So I've had a chance to travel, quite to a number of cities in the US, and I've started to kind of pay attention and notice to see, if there's kind of a local cheap beer kind of culture. In Pennsylvania, they're really big into Yingling. That company's actually US owned. And then of course there's Sam Adams, which is also still a US company. You go to Texas. Texas actually has a couple. Like if you're in the Austin area, they're really big into Shinerbach. If you're kind of more like in the Houston area or San Antonio, they're kind of really into Lone Star. They would make their michelada with Lone Star, I'm sure. And then if you're in Colorado, like obviously Coors Light is going to be king. I would love to hear from you, where are you and what is kind of everybody's go-to like cheap beer when they're at the bar or they're tailgating. Labatt is kind of synonymous here with the Buffalo Bills during football season. The cans, we get Zuba cans, which I don't know if you know what Zubas are, but they're like the tiger stripe, like obnoxious print pants. They have the cans that are striped like that in the Bills colors, and they're fun. They also have Sabres cans as well, so there's not very many beers that are going to put hockey teams on the cans, but because Labatt is so regionalized, they go for it. They're like, here's your Sabres can. I also have some news to share with you. After about 2 years here in Buffalo, I know, can you believe it's been 2 years already? I am moving again. I'm going back across country. This time I'm going to end up in Portland, Oregon. I have mixed feelings. I'm really bummed to leave Buffalo. I've really loved it here. They've welcomed me with open arms, and it's going to be really sad to leave. But I'm also looking forward to the new adventures in Portland and, drinking a lot of good beer, because there's a lot of it there. So, hopefully I'll be able to do some videos from there and hopefully catch up with everybody soon. So, as always, thanks for watching and happy drinking. Cheers.